mandate. But how do we, and then the symbolists who came in after Shelley and Keats, the second romantics.
Baudelaire?
Yeah, they brought in...
That crowd?
Yeah, no longer the aesthetic moment, but the dancing image as an aesthetic expression. You know, not the static moment, the dancing image, the dancing moment. You know, Yeats says, how can you tell the dancer from the dance? But the thing is, how I feel I've solved this problem of how to use visual space, homeopathic retrieval visual space in poetic form, so that I subsume all the poetry that's expressed up to this point as a gold standard. Not that it tells you to stop expressing yourself, because we now are democratic and it's a participatory situation where everybody can use any media. And that was the control of the Rai action before we all had access to media.
So Bob Lockdown is to encourage participatory democracy.
On the way to realizing you're going to get guilty. You know what I mean? And when you get that guilt point and that shame point, basically literate man becomes guilty. Tribal man becomes shamed. So the shame factor that's going to come to the electric tribalized people today is something that I'm offering a way out. And that's
so deep tribal remorse versus momentary
individual
bad feeling.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, my last show in Toronto, I end with that statement, the dialectic between the visually biased man and his problem of guilt and tribal man, tribal groupings, and their problem of shame. Let's not go into it, what that is.
But the JFK assassination inspired guilt and shame, both.
Well, so...
To repeat myself, what were some of the levers that were turning them?
Always repeat ourselves.
Yeah.
What were we going to say?
What was your role in the JFK assassination?
Basically, after the
conscious, or were you moved about? Were you another Oswald
I was
Slifer
very
being
close
moved
to
on the stage?
I was very close to the people who at the highest levels organized it. But I wasn't sure what they were doing, but I was part of the meetings. I wasn't sure who was being targeted. But that was before. After the assassination, I had a definite job, and it was, as I spell out in Bob's Media Ecology Squared, the second level of media ecology is I think it's the efficient causality level, where you control information.
So you devised a series of cover stories?
Disinformation.
False trails to the mafia?
Yeah, false trails of information.
Carlos
I'm not
Marcello,
agreeing with that line. I'm not disagreeing, but creating false trails per se in the information management. So I was a content manager, not a formal manager at that point.
You would build mosaics for people to decipher.
Right, talk to people like Norm Mailer.
So you fed him again. Not only were you feeding him in the 50s, but as you started to get increasingly interested in JFK assassination. So ultimately, after you wrote Harlot's Ghost, which is a view of the solar government that was coming in, right? It's a huge, overweening view of these very same people that you allude to.
Yeah.
I think you can feel free to name them, because he does in that book, and Fletcher Prouty has named them.
Named who? The Secret Council 10 people?
Only who they think was involved in it.
Yeah, no. See, that's the problem with Mailer is, if you look at my chart, I have 1918 to 1945, lockdown world government. 1945 to 1960 is lockdown solar government. Most people, most avant-garde thinkers, were looking at the lockdown of world government, which was a rear-view mirror action from 18 to 45. So
the Beat Generation, all that was...
They were reacting to the lockdown.
Music in the 50s was...
They were reacting to the solar government because Sputnik made the planet a theater. The global village, under world government conditions before 1945, became the global theater in 1957. And that's when Beatnik became acceptable. Okay?
So where was it pushed from, top or bottom?
It was the bottom up is the satellite effect. The satellite created the global theater. So the solar government was the hidden ground. But most people were just then seeing the rearview mirror image, the obsolete world government. And Mailer spends 40 years wrestling with the world government.
Right.
And he doesn't know the solar government effects. Now, Marshall, when he first appeared in the 60s, he was considered like a comet that came in from outer space. A very apt metaphor, because he understood the solar government, and he was describing the solar government, so he had the edge. He had subsumed Mailer's dilemma, understood the problem was, how do you preserve world culture in a solar theater? That was the difference.
But Mailer was useful to the whole Marshall McLuhan effect. He was more in the ring as the pugilist, and Marshall might have been Bundini Brown in the corner saying, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
That's right. And then Marshall...
Which is what you do. You're sort of off the main fight canvas directing.
Up till 1990. Up till 1990, because remember in 1977, everything disappeared. All the media, software, communism disappeared.
Was that your cue to...
Yes, that's when we moved into Toronto in 77, Connie and I. I had to go to Dallas in 77 and 8 and 9, and that's when Stang and Drummond encountered me as young people.
It must have been strange for you to go back to Dallas in that year, because Warren Schultz kills himself, a lot of your old cronies are gone.
See, there's where
right?
the cycle comes back. I mean, that's the year of the House Select Committee investigations in the assassination, 77 to 79.
Did you devise punk rock as an antidote to that?
I was the first person to perform the merging of the sports star and the culture star in the 70s when I read some content poetry while doing push-ups on the stage at CBGB's in the spring of 75. That was the beginning of the punk movement. And you'll see in Time magazine in 1970.
And hence punk took the cue to get athletic.
That's right.
You have Henry Rollins running. You have
they weren't really anti-hippies. They weren't really anti-hippies. They were anti the visual bias of hippies who sat still like Buddhists and emperors. The punks wanted to leap a boat. In other words, enhance the kinetic aspect. Which
go up and down.
Right. So I was initiator of that. But see, from 77, and I was going to say that the Dallas thing would come back. And so I had to
recycle back.
Yeah, it was going to come back because it's a major trauma. The symptoms on the chart aren't major traumas that stay in the collective unconscious for many periods of time. And I have to say it that way because the periods of time are happening simultaneously and recycling and spiraling, and it's not linearly organized, linearly organized. So in 77, when we moved into negative land, only the after image was available of software communism. From 77 to 90, that's when I began to surface. And in 90, the after image, negative land disappears. We return to the rule of good over bad. We go into positone, to quote Mark Free, or into positive land, but there's only two people occupying it, me and Connie. And my job is to resuscitate you people who are, at best, homeopathic retrievals, and even that is a very unknowable state. So I am not operating behind the scenes since 1990. I am the only one on the stage at this point.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm America's greatest artist, but by strange coincidence,
but you're not alive.
You're America's only artist.
I'm the only one. It says why he is the only artist alive today. The rest of you are virtualized, disappeared. I'm the only one who's reappeared. That's the meaning of the critical appraisal, the exegesis by Nelson Thal, which is in the first pamphlet. See, that's the point. I'm the only one
the thing
alive.
is, I'm not even here. I just stick around for my friends, as Beefheart said. But you're in that same boat most of the time.
That's what I liked about
Rambo's drunken boat.
When you're Rimbo.
But you see land from there, though.
Yeah, no, here's the point, is that I liked your talk, your tribute to Don Van Vliet, which Jerry showed me. That cover, I think it was May 14th, 1970, Rolling Stone. That was an awesome cover.
Yeah.
That's a person who had perfect pitch at that time. And you're right, when that came out, even me, who knew Don and worked with him a lot, I loved that cover, and I stared at it all the time. And then the article was so well done by Langdon Winter.
Yes. Well, those past 28 minutes, Bob.
Living past the speed of light.
We'll take a short break, and we'll talk again next week on many of these same subjects.
Tom, it never ends. It never ends talking with me.
Bob Dobbs. And well, it shouldn't. It never even ends looking at you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and I'll change my clothes.
Then you change your clothes.
Well, you see, we just big loaf, eh? Oh yeah, big thick loaf.
Big thick loaf.
I forgot the ground. You know that.
So with that, ground rules, so the figures can have
So
action.
you get swallowed up, so we're inside swimming around.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, next one we might want to rotate it just completely different sections.
Yeah. We're 3022, which is 11 and 22, 22 and 11, which can become 33, or it can become 222. What an amazing product.
We're a 2-2.